Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hasseman, and joining me today is a super rock star. She's known as the nicest person in promo. She's also director of customer relations at Bay State and Americana. Josette Bosse, how are you?
Hey, Kirby. I'm psyched to be here, finally.
Finally, right? I'm super excited to chat today, and I appreciate you taking the time. So let's jump in. You have been, and we've talked, you and I have talked many times before this recording, and I know that you've been at Bay State and now Americana for many years. So I'm curious to start, what's it like to work in a small family-owned business in our industry, and why do you think that suits you?
So I started here in 2003, and I wanted a job close to home that I could get my kids on and off the bus. My oldest was starting kindergarten. And it fit. Mm-hmm. It fit for my life.
Right.
So that was perfect. Kids, sick from school, whatever. Everybody has a family here. It's close knit. So it worked. And then as time went on, my position grew and grew and grew. But the fact that you're in this little bubble of your other life.
Yeah.
That works with what you're trying to achieve in life itself. I don't know how to put it into words, but it just works. Yeah. It's we all understand if somebody's mother's sick or your sister's sick or your kid got issues or whatever. So it all blended together, but it's also nice too, because it's like a team. So, with a big company, you have a set role.
Yeah.
In a small company, we all kind of fill all the roles. We're in the office, we're on the floor, we're helping with shipping, we're helping with packing, we're helping with everything. So everybody's together. And I think when you're trying to balance your life and your career, I think for me, my soul needs to be happy in both places. I feel like I need to have my family needs to be just as much here as it is at home. Because I don't want to be that person that dreads walking in every day. Yeah. I don't get when people are like that. I'm I would never. It's never been like that. So I don't know if that answers your questions. I kind of go off on a tangent. In my head doesn't always come out of my mouth, but it just fits.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, Josette. I mean, obviously we're a small family-owned company here. And one of the things that when people work, I can't pay as much as some of the bigger companies in our community or whatever, but I am going to be flexible. And, as I always say, I expected to go to my kids' games. And so I would expect you to want to do that too. Right. And I find, and I think in sometimes, and nothing wrong with working at a bigger organization, but I hear what you're saying, because I think when, I know that an employee is all in and they have ownership in the company, that if they need to take a break, I'm you need to do what you need to do. And then you'll be a better employee for it. Right.
And there's this accountability too that happens, I think, because they give you that flexibility. Mm-hmm. You don't take it for granted.
Right.
You're in my head, I'm oh my God, I just had this huge disaster happen and all this crazy stuff went on and I had to take time out or whatever. So in your mind, you come back and you're I'm stepping it up because you appreciate what they gave you as a gift, really, to say hey, we're giving you a pass. We know life is upside down. And it's kind of like a rewards points, what I mean? Yeah. That good stuff for you, you do that good stuff for them. It's it's a give and take, and it's just always been like that here. So it's good. And then you see them with their lives go crazy, and they have to go, and we all step up because they have to be up. So
I totally get that.
It matters. It matters.
Well, cool. That's great. So you have also, I know that you've attended Women's Leadership Conference. You've told me a little bit about that in the past. So why do you think events, and specifically that event, is powerful? Why do you think it's good to do those things?
So it's funny because I never really bought into that stuff to be honest. I was like, really? Women's leadership? And then Mike would always say, do you want to go? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And then finally one year I went and I was like, oh, I get it now.
Okay.
I get it. It's a different vibe when you're there with all the women. And I know, like, it's nothing against the guys. Sure. It's just, it's different. And I think we're there because we're not really there to work or get clients, or it's like not a trade show. You know what I mean? Right. We're not. And you build like these different bonds and these relationships that you really didn't expect to walking in. And now, like, I have all these friendships and these women in my life that I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm so glad I went. I don't like putting myself out there, like doing this, not to, you know, and even like sitting there and like being at a round table and everybody's got to put their feelings out there. I'm like, oh my God, do I need to do that? But when you do, then you're like, oh, you're just like me, and you're just like me, or, oh, you are where I used to be. Let me help you through that, because that used to be me and I used to struggle with that, or vice versa. So it's like, it's really good. And I was pleasantly surprised. I've gone twice and then COVID hit, so I didn't do that. But last two I had been to, and I love it.
That's awesome.
I didn't think I would, but I did.
Well, I actually like that idea that, like, I think there's a lot of people that go to events like that and they're fired up, but the people who are skeptics that get turned around are the ones that really speak to the value of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because I was always like, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, I'm sold.
Okay. I love it. All right. So I sent you this one, but I'm curious, this could be inside, outside of the industry, whatever. Who are some people that inspire you?
It was funny. I saw that question and I'm like, I can't say there's a specific person, but I just like nice people. Like when you see something nice, you're like, I like that. And you're like, I want to be around that. I want to be like that. You know, you see like just people in the industry doing nice things, and you know, the fundraisers with like the NEPA cares and the promo cares, and you see all that stuff, but it's like the basic stuff too, that like kind of keeps you going when like somebody sends a nice thank you note, or somebody does like the little things, and you're like, oh, you like kind of bank it in your brain, and you're like, totally. I'm going to do that because that made me feel good. I'm going to do that to make somebody else feel good. Or just, I can't say there's like a person. It's just all good things in general. Watch TikTok. There's this guy on TikTok. I think it's Jimmy Darts, Jimmy something. And he like shows up and he like finds these people that almost look like they're home, or some of them are homeless or just struggling. You can tell like they're the struggling people. And he like asks them for $1, and they'll like give him $1, and then he gives the $1 back and gives them like $500. I'm like just the nicest things. Like you're like you want to be like the good person helping.
Yeah, it reminds me, and I talk about this sometimes, but there was a study done about the chemical oxytocin. So oxytocin is a chemical that's released in our body. It's called the drug, or the love chemical in our body. And they said that a person who receives a random act of kindness gets a boost of oxytocin, and it makes them feel good and decreases stress. There's all kinds of good stuff. The person who gives the act of kindness, right, they get an equal boost of oxytocin. And that sort of makes sense. When we do something nice for somebody, it feels good. But the cool part of the study, it said that a person who sees the random act of kindness. I was going to say,
well, what about the person watching it? Because that's happening to me.
Yeah, they get an equal boost of oxytocin. So I think that not only are, like, you're right, but there's science that backs it up. It does make you feel good, and it makes you kind of aspirational. So I love that, Josette. So, all right. So final question for me. You're doing great. I know that we were so excited to do this today. So COVID, you know, forced all of us, right? It changed the world for a time, forced us to work from home, do more on camera, which, you know, I know that some folks struggled with. And then now we're coming back to the office. So as you think back, what are some positives that have come from that whole experience? We've talked about the negatives ad nauseum, but what are some good things?
So I think, so we go back to the whole family sticking together kind of thing. And I'll never forget getting the text saying like, hey, basically like we're shutting down. And do you want to grab one of the trade show booths and set it up at home? And I'm like, no, I do not. Not at all. But I'm texting back, yes, absolutely. Anything you need me to do. And I'm like, no. Everything in me screaming no, but I'm like, yes, I need to for my family. So that I got used to it. I did my CAS, I did my MAS training, I did the diversity training, I attended a bunch of commons views. I did like all stuff that like I typically wouldn't have to. I learned how to play the piano.
All right.
Not great. But I learned, still learning, and like just doing more of the things that you kind of didn't have time to do, you know? So, and I learned this, you probably know it because you've been around forever, but I didn't know that your MAS and your MASI, like you can use your MAS credits to get your MASI.
I didn't know that. No.
Right. One of my customers through video chat that we made friends during COVID. We were talking about it and she told me. And then so I got that too. I was
that's
like,
awesome.
Right, leveling up.
That is awesome. And I think that's it. I think, you know, I saw a post early in where it's like, I always said that if I had extra time, I'd have a clean house. Well, that's no longer the excuse, right? Because I had the time. And I think that there's people like you who jumped in and were like, okay, all that stuff I said I wanted to do, I'm going to try and do. And I think those folks, much like yourself, have come out stronger on the other side of this. And so kudos to you.
Yeah, I didn't want to waste my brain. I was like, what? I'm like, it's not maternity leave and I get to stay home. I was like, how is this happening? I was like, the most I ever got in my life was 6 weeks. I'm like, I got a year.
I love it. Well,
no diapers. I was psyched.
No diapers. I was psyched. That's what I'm going to take away from this. So Josette, thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate you taking the time, and we'll have to do it again. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.